Hello, everyone. Welcome to Express the Talk today. My name is Hans, and thank you for joining us. Today's topic is about kindness. In this difficult time in which people are challenged by the COVID pandemic, racism and inequality, job insecurity, and personal struggles, it is so important to remember to treat each other with kindness. And we think that the best way to present this topic is through a folktale. So, grab an espresso and get comfortable for this uncommon episode. Let's listen in.
Hello, Espresso Talk Today listeners. It's Robin here. Welcome to Espresso Talk Today. This is a special but different episode, and we're so glad that you've chosen to spend this time with us. Regular listeners know that we release our regular show every Friday on any topic of interest to the Black community. We're really grateful for the engagement and loyalty of our listeners because they've made it possible for us to publish special content like we have for you today. If you're a new listener, welcome to the show. We hope that you'll enjoy it and that you'll join our community of amiable intellectuals. Today's show is an extension of several previous shows about racism and about wearing masks, and of course, about the inspirational and educational power of folktales. African Americans have been facing racism since we came to America. Yes, some changes have been made, and yes, some things have stayed the same. The system and the structure remain in place, and they affect every aspect of Black life. We won't go into those discussions in this show today, but we will present a folktale that addresses these connected issues. What is our responsibility to help others? ETT listeners know that I love folktales and I find them to be instructive and entertaining. Folktales are great too because they typically have a cultural or indigenous foundation. And that's also instructive and requires people to look beyond their own personal experiences. I like that they make us question our core beliefs, which, for me, is a great growth activity. Today's story will present this question of our responsibility to help others. Let's get straight to the story, and I'll return afterwards. Just like our story in June about gratitude, we have our resident elder here to read our story. In June, the folktale was based in Nigeria. This week's story is based in China. It's called The Lord of the Cranes. Usually, I like to focus on stories from Africa, but the ETT team felt that this story was perfect for this week's theme, kindness. So sit back, get comfortable, and let's welcome Elder Mellanese to read this week's folktale.
Lord of the Cranes. There are places in China where the mountains reach all the way up to the clouds. High up on one of these mountains lived a wise old man. His name was Tian, which means heaven. There among the clouds lived Tian's friends, the cranes. Tian fed them and cared for them. The birds told Tian of the wonders they had seen on their flights down below. Tian was devoted to these birds, and they would do anything for him. That is why Tian was called Lord of the Cranes. One day, Tian decided to go down to the city. He wanted to see if people were remembering to be kind and generous. So the old man settled himself on the back of a crane and flew through the clouds. In the city, Tian met a beggar. "Would you be willing to exchange your clothes with mine?" asked Tian. The beggar was shocked. "Oh, no, sir. Why would you give up your splendid robes for my torn old rags?" "I've come to test the people," Tian said. "No one must recognize me." Then the beggar understood that Tian was no ordinary man and gratefully agreed to the exchange. Tian gave the beggar his blessing and went on his way. Day after day, Tian went begging through the streets of the beautiful city. Many wealthy people passed by, but no one seemed to notice him. Not a single person dropped a coin in Tian's cup. One evening, Tian arrived, tired and hungry, at a small inn. Wang, the owner, welcomed him. "What can I do for you? Could you give me a little something to eat and drink?" asked Tian. "I'm sorry, but I have no money to pay." Wang smiled cheerfully and waved away the apology. "Sit down, take a rest." Wang brought the old man a warm bowl of soup, rice, tea, and a plate of sizzling meat. Tian's heart was as full as his belly when he left the inn that evening. On the following evening, Tian stood again at Wang's door. "Please, sir, could I have a sip of rice wine and a bite of jotse to eat?" he asked. "My pleasure. Don't worry about the cost," answered Wang. Tian ate and drank and smiled his thanks. From then on, Tian came every day to Wang's inn, where he was always welcome. Many months went by in this way. One day, Tian said to Wang, "I am deeply touched and I am in your debt. You have been so good to me. I must find a way to repay you." Wang was surprised. "But you do not need to repay me," he said. "What I have given to you, I've given gladly. It makes me happy when I can help someone." Tian smiled. "Nonetheless, I would like to repay you. Of course, I have no money, but I can give you something else." Tian untied a gourd from his walking stick. It looked like a water flask, but Tian used it like the finest sable brush to paint a picture of 3 cranes on the wall of the inn. Wang was astonished. "It is wonderful," he claimed, "heavenly." "Just wait," Tian said, "it gets better." He started to sing and clap his hands, and the cranes began to move. One by one, they fluttered off the wall and danced to Tian's song. Wang's eyes and mouth were wide with astonishment. "Let your guests be merry," Tian said. "When they start singing and clapping, the cranes will dance." Tian turned to the door. "Wait, just who are you, good sir?" Wang called, but Tian just gave a friendly wave and disappeared. Soon everyone in the city was talking about the wondrous dancing cranes at Wang's inn. More and more people came every day to marvel at the beautiful birds. Before long, Wang was one of the richest men in the city, but he always kept a seat free and a bowl of soup ready for anyone in need. One day, Tian returned. Wang hurried to greet him and sat him at the best table and brought him a delicious meal. "Please tell me who you are," he begged. Tian didn't answer. Instead, he lifted his flute to his lips and played a melody that was so tender and beautiful it brought tears to Wang's eyes. "That was a melody from heaven," whispered Wang. "I thank you for allowing me to hear it. You have made me a rich and happy man. How can I ever repay you?" "Teach others to be as kind and generous to the poor as you have been to me," said Tian. "That is my only wish." Tian raised the flute to his lips and played the melody from heaven one last time. The 3 cranes stepped off the wall and knelt before him. Tian stroked them and said, "I thank you for your help, my friends. We will now fly home." He bowed to Wang. "Farewell, good sir." Tian flew on the back of one of the cranes, up and away from the city and into the sky. A great flock of cranes accompanied him. Wang stood watching the sky long after Tian and the cranes had disappeared. At last, he knew who the unusual beggar really was. Deeply humbled, Wang returned to his inn. For the rest of his life, Wang tried to fulfill the Lord of the Cranes' wish, telling all who would listen of his miraculous encounter with the beggar in disguise and urging them to share with those less fortunate.
The end. It's Robin again. I'm back. I hope that you enjoyed this story. Originally, I thought of it like the parable of the Good Samaritan, and in many ways, it's very similar to the Good Samaritan. But it's told from an ancient Chinese perspective rather than a biblical or New Testament perspective. Although the story opens with Tian disguised as a beggar wearing rags, he repeatedly asks for food and money, but his pleas go ignored. His fortune, or rather his misfortune, changes when he meets Wang, who owns a restaurant. Of course, Wang doesn't know that Tian is a rich man in disguise. Tian asks Wang for food, and Wang happily helps him. Night after night, Tian asks for food, and every time, Wang gives him food or whatever he requests. This makes me wonder how often we pass up an opportunity to help another person in need. Sometimes this person could be poor and in need of food or shelter or money. Or this person could be in distress in another way, such as a person experiencing domestic violence, or a person whose car is broken down and needs a ride, or a person who simply needs someone to talk to. Thinking of the COVID pandemic situation today, many people are in need of support on a personal level. What can we do to help? Donate money, work at a food bank, hire or keep a job open for someone, babysit for a single parent who's a frontline worker, wear a mask to protect others from getting the virus, maintain social distancing to protect others. There are a lot of different ways we can help others during this pandemic. On the systemic racism front, another pandemic, there's a lot more that we can do. We can listen to people of color when they discuss racist incidents. Stand in support of people of color during racist incidents. Protest against racism. Donate to organizations that fight racism or otherwise empower people of color. Take a knee against police violence. Support Black Lives Matter. Like Wang in the story, you might be called on repeatedly to help or support another person, like wearing the mask every day or donating even more money to anti-racist organizations, and you never know exactly who will benefit from your generosity and kindness and your sense of social responsibility. However, in the story, Wayne did not know that Tian was rich or that Tian would repay him in such a way that would make him prosperous. That's the wonderful gift of giving. You get more than you give when you give without the thought of receiving, with only the thought of doing the right thing. So this story was very meaningful to me, and I hope it was to you too. It made me think about responsibility to help others. Actually, maybe it's a privilege to help others. What were your thoughts? Do you see any lessons that can be applied today? I'm just going to bring up some of these things. Speaking of the Good Samaritan parable, Dr. Martin Luther King, things always of wisdom for me used to come back to Dr. King. He asked himself, if I do not help this man, what will happen to him? I think that can be applied to Wang in today's story. What would have happened to Tian if Wang wouldn't have helped him? We know that Tian was secretly rich, so he would have been okay. But Wang didn't know that at the time. But for today, perhaps we can ask ourselves, if I don't wear a mask, what will happen to the cashier at the grocery store where I shop? What will happen to her family? If I don't socially distance, what will happen to the older woman sitting on the bus? If I don't fight against racism, what will happen to the African American man who was stopped by the police for a broken taillight? If I don't show support for Black lives, what will stop the police from using a chokehold on a handcuffed Black person? If I don't hire this qualified Black woman, how will she support her family? If I don't stop harassment of this black teenager, what kind of trauma will he carry with him for the rest of his life? In general, if I don't act, what life will I fail to save? These aren't easy questions to answer, but like Wang, we can approach these situations from the perspective of kindness and love. With this perspective, great things are possible. All things are possible. To you now, Hans.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Espresso Talk today. So, let's have some after coffee thoughts. This ancient folktale from China is very similar to the parable of the Good Samaritan from the New Testament of the Bible. Many cultures and religions present this idea of treating others with kindness and helping others in their times of need. However, this story presents another aspect. Even though Wang became wealthy from helping Tian, that was not the end of the story. Wang was also encouraged to teach kindness and help those in need. Now, we have some questions for our audience. What did you think of this folktale? Do you think that this folktale is similar to the Good Samaritan story from the Bible? How does it differ? What are the different ways that we can show kindness to each other these days? There is so much more to discuss, so please don't leave us now. We really want you to join this conversation. We are inviting you right now to join us on Facebook at the Espresso Talk Today Forum or on Twitter at Espresso Talk Today. You can also visit our Espresso Talk Today YouTube channel to watch original and educational videos on African American history. And of course, you can send us a private message at expressotalktoday@gmail.com. We are anxiously awaiting your thoughts and opinions. After all, this is the place for thinkers. Well, that's all for this week. Be sure to join us again next week for another uncommon conversation that is full of information, inspiration, and passion. You do not want to miss it. You can listen to our episodes on our website, expressotalktoday.com, or on Spotify, Stitcher Radio, iTunes, or wherever you listen to your podcast. Next week will definitely be another interesting talk. So be sure to bring your espresso. You might even want a double. See you next time. Ciao.